digits, the kind of a concern once you start getting to the end game. And Soccer White sitting in those shoes right now find themselves at 10-5, doubling down that of Sick Esports is all score themselves. But with that, they also have a lot of weaponry to be considering going forth. I mean, just look at the loadout they have. It's almost like you're not trying to climb a wall with a bunch of arrows raining down on you. You're trying to climb a mountain with an avalanche coming your way, and Soccer White being at the forefront of that.
Yeah, Becky and I were talking about having to climb Mount Rushmore because it'd just be so much harder because of the noses and the eyeballs and, you know, a lot of rough terrain. But Chef gonna take a shock dart to the brain there, and he's gonna go ahead and lay out Churro. Say thanks for that dart. Goodbye, friend. A lot of abilities being dumped here for sure, all over the map. Gabe Sue gets the best of ISO. We just had a classic and a dream. Minimal is there for the trade. 3 versus 4 now. Sakura White doing a pretty okay job of just not really getting much done here on the let's hold sight end of things, but now they are going to have the I think that's their best option, is to keep all 3 players together, try to get those trades, get the numbers game into works here. But Shimu and company doing a pretty good job of locking down sight.
Yeah, locking down side is the name of the game right now. When you had that spike down and you're in Sick Esports' shoes, trying to get yourself another round, get yourself back into this game to be a consideration. But against so much massive firepower, knowing all the players who are going to be there towards those arches, you forget to check hell, but it doesn't matter. You see the trades that come through. Foon in a 1v2 scenario, knowing one's towards hell, one is towards arches. Trying to find the angle somewhere to at least grab those shots with so much stacked up against him, so many angles to be checking with that bomb ticking down as well. You're not going to find the shots. You're not going to find the rounds. Sick Esports getting right back into this, getting themselves one more, sitting at 6-10 now.
Just like that, a 4-round deficit. I mean, we've had, you know, it was a 4-round deficit, and all of a sudden 10-5 hit where SW was able to get their 10th on the board, and now Sick is coming right back, looking for any kind of opening for them to take advantage here. 10-6 is the score, 4-round deficit, and if you're looking at Chef and ISO for SW, they are, or for Sick, they're doing beautifully. 12 and 11 and 12 and 13. Those are your top 2 for Sick, and they are doing phenomenal. Soba and Jet. You know, Soba's not really that fragging guy, but apparently today he is.
I mean, on a sense specifically, though, when you have all the intel to be playing off of, you better at least get a kill with the intel that you provide. I mean, consider you have all the resources in front of you to be working with. You need to make the most of it. And we see Chef definitely living up to the hype, doing his job appropriately. And maybe we can see some appropriate picks here towards this A site with the swings coming through, the initiative getting onto the site, the swarm coming through, and the trades to follow up with it. Shots and shots. That's a 2 for 2, but it doesn't matter because Soccer White sitting up 3-2 in terms of manpower.
Even trades coming out, but like you said, numbers game still in play here for Sakura White. On the retake, that's definitely going to help them out. The numbers game is definitely going to be helpful for the retake, but Nightmare just barely not able to spot that Sky hanging out in hell. It's a 2-man post plant, and you got to wonder if it's going to come down to does SW just have the numbers here. Nightmare takes out Shimu. Minimal now on a 1-on-3. Potential ace, 1-on-1 now. This could be the ace they need and the victory for Sick. And it's not going to be enough. Churro is able to lock in the headshot. Now 11-7 as he's going to go ahead and save Sakura White from utter disaster there. That was almost amazing.
Yeah, and that's a really sticky situation to be in when you're that Astra. Just not knowing what angle to pick, which way to go back and forth. You already had that charm down, and you just don't really know what to do with it. You know you want to smoke it out. It's not close enough to that spike to be holding it out and really choke off your vision towards it. But I mean, when you see the strafe shots coming through, you see a Jet, you know they're going to be antsy, you know they're going to be looking for those kills. They're not going to go ahead and play it slow. Just hold an angle, wait for Churro to come into your sight lines, and we just see a little bit of a too late of a swing, not too much of a consideration, and we see Soccer White grabbing their 11th now, sitting with 2 ultimates in their hands as well to be really playing off of this round if they do so decide as they get right onto the speed side.
This is scary. If you're Sick, this is scary. You're at a 5-round deficit. You need to start closing this more and more. And that shock dart from SW Stova is just going to be the nail on the coffin at this point. That there goes their information, or some of their information at least for Sick, as Cypher goes down. But they still have Sova and Sky, so it's still info. Shima doing a good job of covering his teammates here, but it looks like Bomb is going to go for a quick little rotate through mid to A site. And Mick, this is what we were talking about in pre-game. They don't have mid control, and yet they're still challenging, trying to rotate through. And guess what? Gabeski's going to go ahead and pick one of them off through mid, and Katashio is going to pick up the last two, just like that. You have to have mid control if you're going to go through mid. If you're not, don't. 12-6. Suddenly we're at match point. Sakura White doing with a pretty commanding lead at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this is the stage where obviously when you're on that match point, we're going to consider Soccer White to be favored here. Now that they're only stacking their resources up more so, they're really just hoarding at this point. They have more ultimates to be playing off of. You get the Hunter's Fury now to be working with. You got so much money. If you lose a round, you got a compensation. You got a bonus round. You got a safety net. You have so much just basically in terms of life insurance behind you and round insurance that you're not really too stressed at this stage. But Sick, with their back up against the wall and with an operator staring down their sidelines, Chef's gonna be the first one to fall. Nightmare looking to go and get a little bit preemptive on this Hunter's Fury, able to find a shot off, but with the damage done, you need the kills, and Foon's there with the follow-up. 5v2 here as Sick Esports is looking at going home.
Yeah, this is not a good position for Sick at all. And it's especially, it makes it worse because Minimal's by himself with Bomb. You know, that's just no good for anyone in that situation. Foon's gonna take advantage of it, and as he gets his third, by the way, so potential 4K here for Foon, but I think ISO's gonna go ahead and get dropped. Picks up two, kind of a collateral there, and Churro's there with the Odin to shut it down, and there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was all she wrote. 13-6 as Sakura White dominates Sick Esports here on Ascent.
Yeah, and that's a real shame, man. Looking that they only got themselves one round in that entire second half is kind of scary for Sick Esports to know that they didn't really step it up when they needed to. I mean, I feel like they had such a great job on those retakes when it came around to being that offensive end. Why couldn't they just have that same ideology? I mean, you get the spike down, you get the retake, you're essentially on offense at that point. Just transition it. Play the same game you've been doing so far, but we just never saw him going for those right angles. We saw him getting a little bit kind of, I would say, scared going to the middle of that map because they never found that presence you were mentioning and not really playing off of it, working for every single angle, trying to go ahead and really take a site by force and then hold it down past that point and having that manpower. So with that being said, you do see the kill feed there in the top left. Oh, Nightmare, Katashio, and Churro just absolutely putting in their work tonight. And we saw Chef and Minimal really get the step up in that first half. But, I mean, once you get around to the other edge of the field, you can't really do as much as you expected to when you don't have that follow through. Those teammates there to go ahead and be making those trades with you. So a great attempt, but just falling a little bit short. 7 rounds short to be exact here for them to move on to this next round. And a great showing here for Soccer to get back into it and get ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean this is the first night or their first match of the night. It's a great way to introduce yourself to people who don't know you. By the way, 13-6. Also, we've won how many paths to Pit of Valor, so we're here to do it again. Yeah. But it's that I want to touch on something. That game was a pretty great example of a mirror, except for the fact there was a Killjoy and a Cypher difference, and I think we've kind of gotten our pick of the litter, or not pick of the litter, but you know we've received some evidence tonight. Foon, who was Killjoy, went 13-11 with 5 assists. Juan went 7-18 with 3 assists. So there is a little bit. I get they are different characters and they are played very different. But at the end, I'm gonna stick by my ultimate decision of keeping Killjoy as my favorite Sentinel. That's just how it be.
I mean, that's a fair assumption. You also got to consider the players coming through, the compositions with it, whether or not you can make any kind of trades, because we do see Phoenix sometimes on this map. There's a lot of different variables to be looking at and considering in that kind of debate, but I don't think we have the time tonight to really write up a paper for it. No. But we do have enough time to go ahead and tell you at least about the old GLG gaming facility coming up here soon. I would say, hey, they're coming real soon. I can't give an exact date because I don't live up in Rochester, New York on the 22 store. He's up in Innovation Square, but I can go ahead and let you know that that will be coming up soon, so long as you just type in !GLG LAN in chat. give yourself a little bit more information for that to see what's coming on over there. And also lock yourself in possibly a little bit of a membership there with the Instalock as well. 3 months of membership for $100. It's kind of a deal. It's kind of a deal. Go ahead and lock yourself in them spots because it'll be a nice little place for you to go ahead and not be giving your mom's basement and possibly to get yourself hooked up with some massive equipment to be playing some Valor matches with. But as well as that, I mean, if we're talking about matches, we got to talk about tonight's tournament, which is hosted by Hyperspace Gaming. They have themselves so much to be working off of. They're a great little organization. So long as you just type in exclamation point, sponsor right there in the chat, you can find yourself some more information about them, their merch, everything they had to present, including the $100 prize pool tonight, as well as over there coming up on November 24th. So with that being said, I feel like that's all we've got to go on here, at least for this round before we get on to the next one. I don't know if you got anything else to say, Mick.
I just want to say I'm worried for whoever's going up against SW next because that was such a dominant showing. 13-6 awaited. Like they're warmed up, so I'm really hoping that's not all they have in the tank. So
yeah, I'm definitely with you there. I feel like soccer, and they're sick. I know they're gonna be back. They found themselves at least around, so that's enough of a taste of victory. I feel like to come back another week and get the running coming through, but I mean, it's just not enough when you kind of get unfortunate to face an ex-champ. So that in itself, they'll be back, and so will we here after a short little break. We'll catch you here in a little bit. Welcome back, everybody, to some Pit of Valor action. Number 65 here in the third round. Got a little bit of a different faces on the desk now. It's going to be myself, Mick, joined now by Strive with Soccer White and Retake Mid being the lineup now. How you feeling, my man?
I'm doing good, man. It's a Wednesday. We're ready to go. We're getting into it, man. I'm just starting to get warmed up, getting into the vibe, but it's another Pit of Valor. It's another good week to follow.
It most definitely is, and especially we're following suit if we're following anything. Getting right back to Descent, going right back to the map where Soccer White just ran it on this first round that they were at least playing in. So everything coming through, everything coming out. I'm really excited to see what they got coming, at least in for them, because I mean, so far seeing them being reigning champs, or at least a couple weeks ago, having themselves a crown already to be working with. I really want to see what Retake Mid has to offer, because I don't really have too much intelligence on these guys, but I just want to know what they're going to bring. And with us already getting to Agent Select, we're going to at least get somewhat of a peek of what they got.
That indeed. And I mean, we say it day in, day out, simple, easy coming, easy come, easy go kind of map, but it can get spicy, as you guys saw in map number 1, where things are stretched out to the nth degree of honestly a mega comeback. So is it closeout season? That's TBD. But as we hop into agent selection, I think many of our GLG viewers and loyal fans know the drill and how things tend to go down in these. The meta has kind of established itself very much so, Mick. So hopping in, we'll see what kind of selection we get right away in agent select here.
Yeah, and you mentioned meta, and I think they heard you to some extent, because I mean, this is looking like a mirror matchup. You mentioned meta, and I think it's kind of spelling out right in front of our faces. Sova, Jet, Astra, KJ, and Sky. I think that may be the lineup we're working with in entirety. It just comes down to these last 3 players over here on the side of all Retake Mid, but we're just waiting on these picks to come through. We're waiting on my camera to stop turning into a little seizure, but I mean, besides that, everything they got, I'm just looking at these locks, looking at the game to come through, and looking for that first round, because I want to know what your position is on round 1 before we really get into it. Everybody's saying it's a toss-up, but recently I've been kind of more convinced that it's not as much anymore. I feel like players have gotten a lot more confident, buying a lot more utility off the start. And when you go ahead and consider the 2 utility that really do a lot of damage there in those earlier stages, or just generally across the game, those shock darts and those nano swarms grenades. I mean, when you have those on both sides of the field, I want to know the potential of damage and whether or not that can really make a round differential that early.
I mean, they can, and that's what lends itself so well to this map more than anything too, I'd say, right? That single duelist works amazingly. You let your Sky kind of work on some of the engages as well with the flashes, and that extra bit of utility from the Astra, just it works wonders as a whole on Ascent. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of solidified for me, and it's a comfortable play style for these different teams that are now picking up this single duelist role with a heavy utility base. You can expect your KJ to be on B, as you're seeing right now, kind of like what your Cypher may deliver on the opposing end, which is A, and that's kind of it makes you kind of upset. Cypher on this map also, you've seen a lot of viability, a lot of great one-ways and cage usage. The wires, of course, and the trips are made to be some of the best bit of kit in the game, in my opinion. But as we get into it, I mean, all things said and done, it's going to be a good one, especially because we got that mirror matchup here, Mick.
Yeah, and it just comes down to where this first pick wants to come through at. You see it kind of leaning towards that B side a little bit in that main area, but when you see the back out, you see the presence towards mid, you already see the retake have themselves, they haven't retake mid, they just taken it outright, and they're looking for that presence. They're trying to follow through with it and see if they can find a pick towards 3 as they move towards A, as Gabe Sue and old Isaac Newton have a little bit of a differential, and whether or not the force of gravity is going to put this bullet into his head or not.
This is a good bit of a setup, ready for this A pinch for the most part. Fort towards shorts, heavy though, and we'll see as they're setting up here, minute 6 on the clock. Sending out the utility from that Sky. You talked about it, round 1 util immensely strong. They spot out Churro, and there's one more in the back of sight. So on that goes the explosion. Isaac for the 1 onto Churro. Luck gets in as well onto Katashio. And on that note, I mean, they're pretty much settled in with Hydro on a 3-piece. And man, that's a really good way to start this off for retake mid. I mean, no retake whatsoever, whether it's mid or A. They are very well situated on this site now.
Yeah, they don't really need a retake just yet, because on their offensive end, they're just taking. And they're not really giving up too much just yet, because they haven't given up any kills at least. And they also have a spike on. So with this 2v5 scenario, all coming towards heavy, you see the shock darts coming out. No damage just yet, but a pick from Isaac Newton. Another one for Verno to go ahead and close out this round for retake mid to grab the first on the board. And a heck of a start for them, but whether or not at what the cost is, because the Sova, the shock darts came through this, we get a little bit of money to be working out with, but if we're talking about money, we see Lug already possibly forcing the Vandal, but instead it's going to be Isaac Newton.
Yeah, all good in the hood. I mean, I'm about this round 2 buy, especially when you're feeling good about yourself. You got the 2 kills, which works well and allows you to buy that Vandal with the half armor. So in the end, it's a solid buy, but got to be careful. And luckily for them, they don't have any crazy sheriff showing up to the party on that defensive side. So it should be pretty okay for the most part. We'll see how they fare with these Spectres and that single Vandal and moving it to round number 2.
Yeah, and we already see the presses moving towards this B side a little bit. You know you want to peek that every single round. And, I mean, when you have the advantage, you're not worried about these wall bangs. You're worried about aggression towards your spawn. And Lug already has that sided out. Already has the counters to come through and the shots to come out as well. As we see 2 players from Soccer White falling before a trade finally comes out. But it doesn't seem to matter too much because pistol shots are all over the board. And they're actually finding some kills here.
And with that too, they're actually able to recover a Spectre and get some short control, though. Verno is here and actually taps his gun, so that's going to reveal his position.
One
Isaac,
enemy
though,
remaining.
who went for the big roundabout there through A site, comes around the back end of long A main area and is able to pick up 2 with Verno on the last. So yeah, big guns reign supreme, but they were able to pull off 2. Just happy to say that they did take that Vandal ahead now into round number 3.
And these are the scenarios where I really get concerned because you go ahead and factor in. You see that Derek and Hydro, they can force if they really feel like, well, Hydro not as much. But, I mean, Lug could buy for him. You could have a lot of considerations here to even out the rounds and at least have a rifle as a follow-through. But we see Retake not really opting for that choice, saying, you know, we're going to play the old game that we know and love. Just go for the bonus here on round 3. Play it out. They know they're going to be spending their money. Make the most of it. They're going to be going towards this B a little bit, and you are going to have the shots come through the wall, but not enough to find itself a kill just yet.
Patience here on the attack side. I mean, you're kind of leading with 2 rounds, and you're the driver in this case. 2-0 is the score, and on that note, yeah, these guys are looking very interested in taking this B site. They're gonna have to collapse ahead here. Foon pinned in the corner, gonna get the 1 for more. Connects on more, and Nightmare's actually able to get 2 with the Odin. It goes Burr, and so does Foon's Vandal. And on that note, my goodness, talk about a shocking round 3 as Sakura White steps up the gas. They got Verno as the last man to worry about.
I mean, they didn't make it to this stage for nothing. They definitely have a different game plan when it comes to having these rifles in hand, and they definitely turn the game around, and especially in the manner they've already done it in. A 4v1 scenario, you trap a man inside market, and you look to get the kills. You look for a trade, but nothing to be found. Foon just closing out the round with a 3-piece there. Sakura leaving right where they left off when it comes to these rifles. Just absolute dominance, and we got to see whether they follow it up, get themselves a second to tie it through, whether or not Retake with these buys now in their hands, whether they want to have an answer of their own.
On that note, this is where things start to get hairy financially on the attacker side. Retake mid are really digging deep in terms of the funds. Gonna buy down to next to nothing with that single Spectre on the side of Sick Hydro. So big investment, big round ahead for them to follow, and a really good job, I'll say, on that B side with Foon and Nightmare. They held it down superbly on that site.
Yeah, they most definitely did. I mean, everything that they had to consider. I mean, they had rifles, so I mean that's the biggest consideration. That's the big denominator to really play into, to say, all right, well, we got gunfire advantage. They really don't have too much to be playing with. We got an Odin set up on that wall, so we can just get wall bangs all day here, all over the place, especially with Nightmare feeling fairly comfortable in those shoes to just be stationed with an Odin. Not that big of a deal, but I mean, we do have a tech pause coming through. We got a little bit of a hold up coming out, but with your score not being relatively too interesting just yet, only a 1-round delta. I mean, Sakura, this is where they really start to step up. We saw it in the last game. They were slacking, a little bit lackluster when it came to those pistol rounds until it got to the second half, and they had that momentum playing in their favor. But now that they're kind of starting off, they got the round guaranteed on that third instead of getting shut down in the bonus. Like we saw in that last map, I think they have a lot more potential to just run away with it a little bit earlier.
I mean, it's early on still, like you said. Sorry, Mick, I kind of jumped in a bit ahead of you there. Got a little too overzealous with the thought, but this is where things get a bit cheeky, right? Early on Ascent, it's a fun time, right? Everyone has a great time early on Ascent, but like you saw in map number 1, as it starts to get tighter and tighter, and the closeout becomes, you know, nearer and nearer to you, that's where things get really spicy. So I'll kind of give these first couple rounds a bit of breathing room, a chance for everyone to adapt and learn a little bit about each other. And then from there, things will kind of pick up, especially towards obviously the second half of this, with Nightmare setting up the drone, spamming away. And
keep going.
Oh, he doesn't know.
No.
Isaac there on the lurk. Nice and personal with Nightmare. Churro trades it though. So that's, I guess, a good opportunity and a good rotate coming through there. And at this point, back to the drawing board. It looks like they're going to go for that round 1 strat here. Potential pinch towards A with the 3-man short.
You got to consider the trade that just went through. You sit there and sacrifice the 7 for a jet. You lose that offensive potential to get onto his side. But once you get the retake to come through for the side of Sakura, they don't have that intelligence to know where these players are. But it doesn't matter. You have the shots to come out from Katashio there, finding himself a double. A 3v1 scenario for the likes of old Derek, service 69. And he's going to be service himself a little bit of a death to go 6 feet under. They give old Sakura White their second round here in a row to get back into this game and looking to capitalize on it.
Capitalization all across the board for the most part, and we settle into a 2-2, and that's what we talked about the last round here. You can see with that big buy comes a big save to follow, so it looks like they're going to be going in with the sheriffs across the board, more or less 3 towards the bottom of that board as well. Meanwhile, for the opposing end, the comfort vibes coming in from Sakura White with the weapons and the money building up and nicely. So we'll see how round 5 pans out. I can say though, as a defender side of Sakura White, some cheeky pushes here and there wouldn't be a bad thing. So they're definitely in the driving seat, and we know that they can frag out, especially when they want to.
No, yeah, that's definitely so. Oh, Churro with an opener. I mean, that's just clean. And it's about as clean as it gets for an opener there to go ahead and get yourself an edge to be working off of. And you just mentioned that. The aggression on that defensive end, something that you don't typically see, you don't really expect too much, and it can really play in your favor so long as you get the right shots off. And Churro making a prime example of it.
Turn it down.
Look at it again. It's a rinse and repeat coming up from retake mid. Heavily stacked towards short tap in a way, but they got to watch their back. I believe that is the wild Churro flanking, and no, they actually get it there. Young gave to
mid.
Nice little connection. My goodness. But he's getting siege now. Derek and team coming. Isaac flying high. Market getting spammed. Gotta be careful here. Utility coming directly towards Young, and he's gonna have to be resetting, but he does have Katashio there in the wings, and that's just fantastic timing and good team support. Getting back to a 3v2. Spike now planting. Sakura White got the advantage, but there is a wild Blade Storm active, which you gotta be careful about.
It was a great setup towards that spawn. Some great trades to come through to keep the team alive. Did the best they could to get that spike down. But now that you had the Blade Storm here, you had the player on that site, you had the KJ trying to hold it down, and they edged a whole swing around coming through here. For old Derek, it's not going to be enough for Isaac and crew because Katashio found himself a 3-piece to close out this round. Sky literally leaving off where he left in the last game. I mean, Katashio went absolutely off. The Sky pick is just too good. Think of it like a Phoenix, but better. You got to get kills with Phoenix to go ahead and get those curveballs, to get those flash to be playing off of. But with the Sky, you're probably always going to have yourself a flash available. Even if it sits there and refreshes for free, there's no concerns. Get yourself into a fight, get yourself into 2, 3, and win every single kill.
And this is it. Big round coming up here for Sakura White with guns to their name, 3 ultimates to boot, and they have picked up another round in their name. That's 3 consecutive. So with the rally comes, I guess, team morale and strength moving forward. We'll see if they can continue to work as they have. And I'll say this, Mick, their rotates have been just superb all across the board. I love it.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I mean, soccer, they just find themselves an advantage. They find themselves a flow, and they just play into it. Almost like, you know, the soccer season in Japan, it's an esteemed holiday to some extent, where it's like only about a week, everybody takes off, and it's just a time of joy and comfort. And soccer literally just buying that mentality, saying, we're enjoying where we're sitting. We are sitting comfortable so long as we just keep it like this, not only for a week, but for at least for a couple more rounds, keep the game going. As we see them finding that first pick, they're going to be right into the ideology, get themselves a little bit more of a lead, especially in manpower for this one.
Look at this change of pace. So with 50 on the clock and nothing really happening, this is, I guess by nothing, I mean nothing too major at this point. But again, Sakura White have that advantage, and this is where retake mid, man down, and not a lot of time as we continue to tick ahead. This is where things get hairy, man. You want to make a move, ideally by that 30-40 second point. Give yourself some time to get in, clear utility. But look at A, it's an absolute field day in terms of KJ utility. B, a little bit of presence across the board from that Astra. Isaac Newton for the 1, actually amazing to open it up, and for a second, and the cow, talk about jet equalizer coming out big. Churro, 1 flick shot for the 2. Lug is the better player in that case, comes out on top, and they get that spike down with 15 to their name, so not too close and not too far in terms of timing. Alas, Seeker's going in deep. Katashio down mid, getting counterpart Sky, that is Verno out of the equation, and more activity. They now have spotted the Astra Insight lockdowns everywhere. Holy cow, it is a diagram here, Mick.
Little double whammy coming through. Everybody's fighting for the same site, the same spot with all these Killjoy shutdowns coming through, and a little bit of concern, but a little bit of shots to fall through with it. A 1v1 is going to be the end result of that. You got an Odin versus the Phantom. A lot of money invested here, but not enough to really matter for the side of Osaka. Retake getting right back into this game. Find themselves another round, tying it up once again.
I mean, let's just talk about the whole situation and how that entire round unfolded. It was all looking a little bit topsy-turvy, upside down until Isaac Newton showed up to the party and got a nice two-piece combo. So never count him out, albeit the time was a bit tight and the utility, you know, being set up all the way at A, I think going B was definitely the right choice, all things said and done. So grateful that that worked out. Had they gone towards the KJ side of the map, I think it'd be a whole different fiasco, to say the least, Mick.
Yeah, and we see B time in and time out. I'm really kind of wondering what we could see of a full rifle round here towards the A side. We see it coming through here for the budget buy. It's gonna be a little bit subpar, especially when you had the aggression coming in from the side of all Retake, but it's gonna pay off a little bit. You're gonna see some shots to come out. You're gonna see some picks to fall through as well, but Soccer, they gotta back up. They really needed this. They really need themselves some manpower for this Retake because, I mean, Retake absolutely just pulling it out right now. Something they didn't really expect was around this establishing, and they're really running away with it as we just see them getting that much closer to the site and getting that spike down.
It's an amazing shock dart. It took him right down to 35 sight unseen. Now, hello? What? Excuse me?
Somebody check this guy.
I mean, darn. I'm pretty sure Foon was walking there at some point. Maybe he was hopping around and he heard it, but talk about getting blasted to a different dimension. That was one way to hold off having control. Bravo. And at this point, yeah, retake mid, not retaking rounds for sure.
And I mean, retaking our words, recollecting those at least to get back into where we left off, because I mean, I'm just at a loss of a pick like that. You really just don't know what to do when you get shot and have no clue where the bullets are coming from. It's like you're just blind firing. But putting that behind us, we got another round to come into. Soccer White, they've had themselves a little bit of a slip up, but they can get right back to where they started, looking for the first pick, looking for a little bit of an establishment as they get aggressive towards this B side, with Churro trying to make that first move, but running right into a node and saying, "No, I'm good."
At this point, with really nothing, yeah, it's like the rinse and repeat. I was going to say, like, retake mid. I love this bit of early default that they go towards A in mid area, shifting more to the right side of the minimap, and then, you know, they kind of fall back from there and get their ducks back in a row, make a calculated decision and re-go. But this way, I'd say, as much as we like to see duelist flexibility, especially if you're opping for per se, I wouldn't mind seeing KJ, you know, change gears a bit and take that utility off to B site maybe.
Yeah, that in itself is already a lot to be concerned about. You got to go ahead and also concern yourself with the players, where they're going to be moving towards, where they want to get that spike down, and A is going to be the move once again, is what it's really dwindling down to. But you got a lot of utility set up there. Usually B, you have that KJ set up, you have that Sova set up, but they've only opted for one or the other. So they put all that KJ utility towards that A site with all this Astra. That in itself is a huge force to be reckoned with. If you get the sights, you get the buttons pressed, but they're not there. No hits to come through. Soccer White trying to get this retake to go ahead and be shut down, but the Hunter's Fury may be a shutdown itself if he found one more hit. A kill from Nightmare, and another one possibly as he sits there and whiffs that third shot. But Verno still alive, looking to get this spike down with only 10 seconds left.
10 seconds left.
Big Verno here in the driving seat now, getting that plant. Nightmare has a lineup and it's coming in. It was just a recon. I thought it was a shock dart. Now the drone going out. Pop flash from Verno. He is tagged, and that's not a fun time because, surprise, you're going to get spammed to oblivion. Nightmare is the man with the Odin to do the deed.
Yeah, so a great round here for Soccer to get right back into it. It was well-deserved, well-needed after that last round where I feel like they were probably taking a little bit off whim there to go ahead and be kind of shocked if the shots that come through, how aggressively they got taken over is not something you really expect. But regardless of that, they found themselves tying the game up once again, getting some buys in their hands, I'd say to some extent. They didn't really have the best money. Nobody has too much of a safety net to be working with right now, but it's enough to go ahead and give us as even a round as we could ask for.
Even it is, and talk about it back and forth on Ascent. I'm loving it. And we look at the economy overall, Mick, nothing to really talk about overall. It's just a really good, even matchup. And you'll see across the board, the teams, I mean, with the exception of Isaac, fairly even. Everyone contributing, doing their part. And this time, alas, I think retake mid are now saying, hold on a second, I'm not really keen on this A positioning. And KJ is still at A on that defender side with that utility. I'm telling you, man, shaking up some utility setup and even duelist setups can make a huge difference. So KJ on B, it's got to happen now sooner than later. Lug, that's a confidence wing onto Nightmare.
Most definitely is. And when you hear the shots coming through, you know the Odin's facing that. Or if you want to go ahead and make the swing, you want to find yourself a free kill. Especially when you know those hands that you're going up against are going to be an Odin. You want to find every edge you could be playing off of. And it's just a great little execution there. But you got to execute yourself onto his site to go ahead and get yourself a kill. So we see a lot of damage being done for retake. We don't see too many heals coming out just yet for old Isaac to get right back into this game. It's going to be a little concerning going forward, but you got some seekers that at least give you the intelligence of where these players may be hiding out, what site may be a little bit better to be going for, but they're going right into it and they're going to be playing off these. They rush just A site and run into turret at the same time.
Amazing job there denying any kind of entry. Kartashio gets another one as well. Lug for more, and Foon has a response, so we settle back in. Verno 15 HP. This man is always or not always, but seems to be one of the last alive on more than one occasion. And this is it, 22 and a dream for Verno. Doesn't got a spike either, so that's going to be a bit of a problem considering it's basically dropped in tree room right by that door. So an exit pick or two wouldn't be bad for him. Young,
10 seconds
tapping.
left.
Verno still challenging and poking his head through, trying to find something, and in the end he falls. So that's good. Better to die and not proceed ahead with you know, no guns or anything to your name.
Yeah, I mean, that itself, great way to get themselves back into this. A great way to go ahead and get that round advantage once again, because Soccer, they had it at some point, but it's been a little bit back and forth, back and forth. It's been a little concerning for them. They're trying to get right back to where they left off in that last round, having a massive lead in that second half coming out of that last game and really looking to run forward with it. They've run into a much bigger roadblock than expected, and that in itself is really causing a lot more decisions to be made. And quite honestly, this is a testament they need, because with the game being this much more back and forth here in these early stages, moving closer to the middle of the match, towards that halfway point when you get those side swaps, you need that intelligence. You need to go ahead and feel out your opponent a little bit more so to know what their flow is, how they like to play, whether they're being more collective, more isolated, lurky, whatever the play style may be. This is that stage where you should have figured it out by now, or at least getting really close to know when it comes around to the other side of the field, how you can counteract that, because that's the one thing you can't really change up on the fly.
Absolutely, and then with that comes the whole idea of how do you adapt and how do you make changes. I think the one thing that I haven't seen too much from the defender side has been aggression, right? Very passive, spamming, doing what they want to do, keeping it simple, getting swung on. I want to see them swing a little bit, right? Ascent lends itself quite well to getting intel, and it's kind of a mind game in a way too, right? If you start getting pushy in different places and actually winning those fights and jousts, the attackers were like, wait a minute, these guys are pushing everything. Let's just sit back. And that in itself is mind games. It's a strat of its own as a defender, right? As much as you want to counteract the push or rotate and vice versa, you asserting dominance